At 1:22 in the morning, on June 24th, 2021, 98 people were asleep in their beds. 12 seconds later, Te Waragona, the Champlain Towers South, a 12-story beachfront condominium in Surfside, Florida, didn't burn. It didn't flood. It simply collapsed. The concrete that had held for 40 years suddenly gave way. The pool deck cracked. The support columns buckled, and in less time than it takes to read this sentence, half the building fell into itself like a house of cards. 98 lives erased, families from Argentina, Paraguay, Colombia, the United States. Some victims were 92 years old. One was just 12 months. The nation watched in horror as rescue crews dug through twisted metal and shattered concrete for 33 days. But what most people didn't realize was that this tragedy wasn't just a human catastrophe. It was the beginning of something else entirely. A financial earthquake, one that is still rippling through Miami's luxury real estate market right now. One that has left thousands of multi-million-dollar condominiums sitting empty, unsold, and in some cases, completely unsold. This is the story of how the city that defined American luxury living became a cautionary tale. How 8,000 condos piled up on the market with no buyers in sight. How insurance premiums doubled. How buildings started sinking into the sand. And how owners who paid $10 million for a view of the Atlantic are now trapped, unable to sell, unable to leave, watching their investments crumble. Miami's million-dollar condos are not selling, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why. For decades, Miami was the American dream, wrapped in glass and steel. The sun-drenched skyline, the turquoise water, the palm trees swaying against a backdrop of soaring towers. It was the place where Wall Street traders bought second homes, where tech billionaires escaped the winter, where Latin American fortunes found a safe harbor, where Russian oligarchs parked their wealth. And nowhere was this dream more visible than in Miami's luxury condo market. Buildings with names that read like luxury brands: Porsche designed Torah, Armani, Casa, Fendi, the Ritz-Carlton residences. Towers where you could drive your Lamborghini into an elevator and park it next to your living room on the 60th floor. Buildings where the HOA fees alone cost more than most Americans earn in a month. These weren't just homes, they were status symbols. Trophies. Monuments to wealth in a city that worshipped it, and for years they sold. Fast. During the pandemic, Miami experienced what experts called a real estate frenzy. As New Yorkers fled lockdowns and Californians escaped wildfires and taxes, they flooded into South Florida. They wanted space. They wanted sunshine. They wanted freedom. And they were willing to pay. Between 2020 and early 2023, Miami condo prices surged. Buildings that had struggled to sell units suddenly had waiting lists. Developers broke ground on new towers before the old ones were even finished. The ultra-luxury market, properties above $10 million, saw sales that hadn't been recorded since before the 2008 crash. Miami wasn't just hot, it was on fire. But here's what nobody was talking about. Beneath the glittering facades, behind the infinity pools and the private beach clubs, something was wrong, literally. Many of these towers were built in the 1980s and 1990s, during a previous Florida boom. Their concrete was aging. Their steel was corroding. Salt air from the Atlantic was eating away at their foundations. And for 40 years, condo associations had done what condo associations always do. They delayed. They deferred. They kicked the can down the road. Repairs that should have happened in 2005 were pushed to 2010. Maintenance that was urgent in 2010 was postponed until 2015. Reserve funds that should have been building up were voted down by residents who didn't want higher monthly fees. After all, why pay for something you might never see? And then Champlain Towers South collapsed. And suddenly, everyone saw. The investigation into the Surfside collapse revealed something that shocked even seasoned engineers. The problems had been documented. In 2018, 3 years before the building fell, a structural engineer had identified major issues. Water was penetrating the pool deck. The concrete was deteriorating. The reinforcing steel was corroding. The reports called the damage much worse than expected. A $15 million repair program was approved, but the main structural work, it never started. The residents couldn't agree on the costs. The condo board was and so they waited. 7 months before the collapse, another inspection noted significant vertical slab movement. Cracks were spreading. The building was, quite literally, shifting. 22 days before 98 people died, photographs showed that distress was visible to the naked eye. But still, nothing happened. When federal investigators finally released their findings in 2025, the conclusion was damning. The pool deck had failed first, collapsing into the parking garage below. Then, 7 minutes later, the tower itself came down. Design flaws from 1981. Construction that didn't meet code even at the time. Decades of deferred maintenance. It was, as one investigator put it, a tragedy that had been building for 40 years. Florida's legislature moved fast. Within months they passed some of the strictest condo safety laws in American history. Buildings over 3 stories and more than 30 years old would now require mandatory structural inspections. Not every 40 years, as before. Every 10 years, and 4 buildings near the coast, where salt corrosion accelerated damage. The first inspection would come at just 25 years, but that wasn't all. The new laws also targeted something that had been endemic to Florida condos for decades. Waived reserves. For years, condo associations had been allowed to vote to waive their reserve funds. Rather than save money for future repairs, they could simply skip it, keeping monthly fees low and making their buildings appear more affordable. It was a shell game, a financial time bomb. And Florida had just lit the fuse. Starting in 2025, associations could no longer waive reserves for structural components. They had to fund them fully. Based on engineering studies that detailed exactly what repairs would be needed and when. The era of "we'll deal with it later" was over, and that's when the bills started arriving. Imagine you bought a condo in Miami 15 years ago for $300,000. You paid your monthly fees, you enjoyed the pool, you watched the sunsets. Life was good. Then, one day, you get a letter from your condo association. It's time for the milestone inspection. Engineers have examined the building, and they've found problems. Serious problems. The roof needs replacement. The concrete needs repair. The electrical system is outdated. The plumbing is failing. Total cost, $18 million. Your share, $125,000. Due in 90 days. This is not the hypothetical. This is happening right now, across Florida, in buildings old and new, luxury and affordable, oceanfront and inland. The numbers are staggering. Special assessments of $50,000, $75,000, $100,000. Some owners have reported assessments exceeding $200,000 for a single building repair project. And remember, these aren't optional. If you own the unit, you owe the assessment. Period. For some owners, it's a nuisance. A wealthy investor with a $10 million penthouse can absorb a $100,000 assessment. It's painful, but manageable. But for others, it's devastating. The retired schoolteacher who bought her condo in 1995 for $80,000. She doesn't have $100,000. She's living on Social Security. Her condo was supposed to be her nest egg. Now it's an anchor. And here's where it gets worse. Even if you can pay the assessment, you're not done. Because the new laws also require ongoing reserve funding. That means your monthly fees aren't just covering the pool maintenance and the doorman anymore. They're building up a war chest for the next round of repairs. The result? Monthly HOA fees have exploded. In 2019, the median HOA fee in Miami-Dade County was around $567 per month. By 2024, it had risen to $900, and in many luxury buildings, fees now exceed $2,000 per month. Some reach $3,000 for Surfside. In the most exclusive towers, you might pay 5 figures a month just for the privilege of owning. And that's before your mortgage, before your property taxes, before your insurance. Insurance. Let's talk about that, because if the special assessments are the earthquake, insurance is the tsunami. Florida has always been expensive to insure. Hurricanes, flooding, wind damage. It's the price of paradise. But after Surfside, something changed. Insurance companies looked at their exposure. They looked at the aging buildings. They looked at the deferred maintenance. And they started to pull out. Major carriers left the state entirely. Those that remained raised premiums dramatically. Between 2022 and 2024, Condo Association master insurance policies in Florida more than doubled. Some buildings saw increases of 200%, 300%. In extreme cases, premiums rose tenfold. The average condo owner in Miami-Dade now pays over $2,300 a year just for their personal unit insurance. But that's only part of the picture, because the association's master policy, the one that covers the building itself, is passed through to owners via their monthly fees. According to a 2025 study, the average high-rise condo owner in Miami-Dade now pays over $1,900 per month in association fees. In Fort Lauderdale, it's over $1,800. The single largest component of these fees: insurance, $377 per month, on average, just for the building's insurance coverage. And here's the cruel irony. Even after paying these astronomical premiums, many buildings still don't have adequate coverage, because insurers are now demanding higher standards, more documentation, proof of reserves, proof of structural integrity. Buildings that can't meet these standards can't get coverage at any price. And if you can't get insurance, you can't get a mortgage. Which brings us to the blacklist. Fannie Mae, the government-sponsored enterprise that backs roughly 70% of American mortgages, maintains a confidential database of condo buildings it considers ineligible for conventional financing. This list is not public. Condo owners don't know they're on it. Buyers don't know until their mortgage application is denied. Before Surfside, this list included a few hundred properties nationwide. Today, it includes over 5,000, and 1,400 of them are in Florida. Nearly 700 are in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties alone. Half of all blacklisted condos in the entire state are concentrated in South Florida. The reasons vary: inadequate insurance, deferred maintenance, pending litigation, insufficient reserves, structural deficiencies. Whatever the cause, the result is the same. If your building is on the list, conventional buyers can't purchase your unit. They can't get a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac-backed loan. They can't use an FHA loan. They can't use a VA loan. Their only options are cash or a non-conforming loan that typically requires 25% down and carries interest rates 1 to 2% higher. For a building full of average owners trying to sell to average buyers, this is a death sentence, and the list is growing. So let's put this all together. You have aging buildings that need expensive repairs. You have special assessments that many owners can't afford. You have monthly fees that have doubled or tripled. You have insurance premiums that are crushing associations. And you have a growing number of buildings that are effectively unsellable because buyers can't get financing. What happens next? People try to sell all at once. As of June 2025, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach led the entire nation in unsold condo inventory. 8,317 active listings, more than any other metropolitan area in America. And it's not just volume, it's velocity. In a healthy market, a condo might sell in 30 to 60 days. Today, in Miami, the average condo sits on the market for over 100 days. Luxury condos can linger for 150 days, 200 days. Some of the most expensive units have been listed for over a year with no takers. The months of supply tells the real story. A balanced market has 6 to 9 months of inventory. Miami's condo market currently has over 14 months. In some luxury segments, it's 20 months. In the $10 million plus category, certain buildings have inventory that would take over 30 months to clear at current sales rates. This is not a slowdown. This is a standoff. Sellers are still anchored to pandemic-era prices. They remember what their neighbor got in 2022. They remember the bidding wars, the multiple offers, the cash buyers falling over themselves to get in. But those days are gone by us. No Italiano. They see the inventory piling up. They see the assessments and the fees and the insurance premiums. They're doing the math, and the math doesn't work. A condo listed at $2 million with a $1,000 monthly fee is a very different proposition than the same condo with a $2,000 monthly fee and a pending $75,000 assessment. So buyers wait. They tours, they make lowball offers, or they simply walk away. The data is brutal. In August 2025, condo sales in Miami-Dade fell nearly 17% year-over-year. Median prices dropped 9.5%. And here's the most telling statistic of all. In the first half of 2025, more luxury condo listings expired unsold than actually closed. 179 listings expired, 141 sales completed. More properties are being pulled from the market in defeat than are actually selling. The buildings that are struggling the most read like a who's who of Miami luxury. St. Regis Bal Harbor, Armani, Casa, Porsche Design Tower, 1000 Museum, Turnberry Ocean Club. These are buildings where penthouses once sold for $30 million, where car elevators transported Ferraris to private garages in the sky, where Russian oligarchs and Argentine industrialists parked their fortunes. Now they're sitting, waiting, hoping, and the market doesn't care. If the financial pressure wasn't enough, there's one more problem lurking beneath Miami's towers. They're sinking. In late 2024, researchers at the University of Miami released a study that should have made headlines around the world, using satellite imagery that can detect subsidence down to fractions of an inch. They discovered that 35 buildings along Miami Esperia Islands had sunk by as much as 3 inches in just 7 years. 3 inches might not sound like much, but in a city built on limestone and sand, where the water table is just feet below the surface, even small shifts can be catastrophic. The list of affected buildings reads like a property brochure for the ultra. Porsche Design Tour Ritz-Carlton Residences, Fina Hotel, Trump Tower 3, Regalia, Residences by Armani, Casa, Muse Residences, Jade Ocean, Jade Beach, Jade Signature. The researchers were careful to note that subsidence doesn't necessarily mean imminent danger. Many new buildings naturally settle into the soil for years after completion. No structural failures have been reported, but the study raises uncomfortable questions. How much monitoring is happening? Who's responsible for checking? What happens when uneven sinking causes cracks, misaligned doors, utility breaks? And perhaps most importantly, what does this do to property values? Because perception is everything in real estate. A buyer considering a $10 million purchase doesn't want to hear that the building might be slowly descending into the Florida sand. Combined with the insurance crisis, the assessment nightmare, and the financing blacklist, the subsidence study adds another layer of uncertainty to a market that's already drowning in it. Here's the strange part. While mid-range and older condos struggle, the ultra-luxury market tells a different story. Sales of properties above $10 million are actually holding steady. In some segments, they're growing. South Florida is on pace for the second highest number of ultra-luxury transactions in history, trailing only the pandemic frenzy of 2021. How is this possible? The answer is simple. Cash. At the ultra-high end, 99% of deals are cash transactions. These buyers don't need mortgages. They don't care if Fannie Mae approves their building. They're not stretching to make monthly payments. A $100,000 assessment is a rounding error on a $50 million purchase. These are the hedge fund managers and tech founders fleeing New York taxes, the Brazilian industrialists looking for a safe haven, the crypto millionaires who made their fortunes in the last bull run. For them, Miami's troubles are actually an opportunity. Motivated sellers, reduced competition, more inventory to choose from, better negotiating leverage. So the Four Seasons sells penthouses at $6,000 per square foot. Fisher Island remains the most expensive zip code in Miami. Waterfront mansions on the Venetian Islands trade at record prices. But this bifurcation reveals something troubling about Miami's market. It's splitting into two separate worlds. In one world, the ultra-wealthy continue to buy trophy properties with cash, immune to the forces crushing everyone else. In the other world, ordinary condo owners, the teachers and nurses and retirees who bought during the last boom, find themselves trapped. They can't afford the assessments. They can't sell because buyers can't get financing. They can't refinance because their building is on a blacklist they didn't know existed. One analyst called it real estate apartheid. and the gap is only growing. So where does this end? Florida's legislature has tried to help. Governor DeSantis signed bills allowing condo associations to fund reserves through loans rather than one-time assessments. Inspection deadlines have been extended. Some requirements have been loosened for smaller buildings. But the fundamental problems remain. The buildings are still old. The repairs are still needed. The insurance is still expensive, and the blacklist is still growing. Some experts predict a slow-motion correction. Prices will gradually fall as sellers accept reality. Inventory will clear. The market will find a new equilibrium at lower levels. Others see something darker. A wave of bulk sales as desperate associations sell entire buildings to developers who will demolish them and start over. A hollowing out of middle-class condo ownership. A future where only the wealthy can afford to live near the water. And lurking beneath everything is the question that no one in Miami wants to ask. What happens when the next building falls? Because if Surfside taught us anything, it's that decades of neglect don't announce themselves with warning signs. They announce themselves at 1:22 in the morning, when 98 people are asleep. Miami's skyline still glitters. The towers still pierce the sky. The pools still shimmer under the Florida sun. But inside those walls, behind those floor-to-ceiling windows, something is shifting. The bills are coming due. The insurance is disappearing. The buyers are walking away. And the question isn't whether Miami's condo market will change. It's whether it will survive.